The Ford Country Squire wagon wasn't just another family car in 1957 America. It was a long, sun-drenched highway. It was a front porch on wheels that moved. The kind of machine that carried summer vacations, little league gear, and 3 generations of stories under its wide roof. You could see it from a block away. That wide chrome smile and the shiny fake mahogany panels that caught the morning light like an old fishing cabin by a quiet lake. For a lot of guys back then, this wasn't just a car in the driveway. The family relied on it to be their anchor. It was patient, strong, and ready for anything the map said the road might lead to. The 57 Country Squire came as a promise that the great American road still had room for wonder, freedom, and the gentle passage of time itself before the years weathered its lacquered panels and softened its V8 rumble. When the Ford Country Squire came out in 1957, it was a time when Detroit still thought that beauty and usefulness could coexist in the same steel building. And the Country Squire, which Ford called its flagship wagon, had a kind of soft power about it. It wasn't loud or showy. It didn't have to be. You could tell it was made for families who didn't count the years by dates, but by the miles between their hometowns, campgrounds, and the farthest reaches of American possibility. Ford completely redesigned the 57 from the previous year. They made its stance wider, lowered its roofline, and shaped its sheet metal into something smoother, more confident, and more in line with the jet age optimism that was spreading across the country. The front had a wide chrome bar that looked like it was smiling, as if the car knew it was made for trips that would be remembered. Underneath that, wide-set headlights looked out with a calm, steady gaze. Lamps that would light up countless trips home from fishing trips or school events at dusk. But the wood was what really set the Country Squire apart from other cars. By 1957, Ford wagons no longer had real wood. Instead, they had Dyno Knock, an early, durable vinyl that looked like rich mahogany. To people who weren't trained to see it, and especially to kids who were leaning out the passenger window back then, it looked just like varnished wood that had just come from a craftsman's shop. Ford used die-cast trim to frame the die knock, which made it look like there were structural beams along the sides. In those showroom days, touching it felt like touching a soft dream, one that was based on the long history of American woodies. Ford offered 2 willing hearts under the hood, even as the company quietly moved the wagon into a more modern steel-bodied future. The 272 in YB Block V8 was the base engine. It was a strong and reliable motor that provided steady power for a long time. But a lot of families, especially those who saw vacations as tests of endurance and ambition, moved up to the Thunderbird Special, which had 292 cubic inches of space. It had a 4-barrel carburetor and higher compression, which gave the Squire a powerful boost. It had enough power to merge onto the growing interstate system or pull a small trailer without any problems. It wasn't a fast car, but it had a lot of heart. And on the open road, the sound of its rumble was like an old friend humming a song you already knew. There was a cabin inside the Country Squire that was made for real Americans to live in. The bench seats were wide and soft, and the upholstery was made of durable vinyl colors that matched the time period: green meadow mist, white colonial, and flame red. The dash was a perfect mix of style and function from the middle of the 20th century. Its gauges are simple, truthful, and easy to read. A lot of people ordered wagons with the third seat facing the back, the way back, where kids could kneel against the glass and wave at truckers or make up stories about the cars behind them. For many dads of the time, seeing their kids disappear into the back compartment of the car during a road trip felt like giving them their own world. And then there was the back of the truck. Ford's famous dual-action magic door gate. It came out later, but it was based on ideas that were being developed during this time of family-focused innovation. The back access was made to be flexible even in 1957, simple to load and get into. The kind of space that made camping gear, grocery stores, or baseball gear feel like home. Whether you were carrying plywood on a Saturday morning or folding blankets after a picnic by the lake, the Country Squire was always there to help with your everyday tasks. For a lot of men who were kids back then, the memory of that wagon isn't tied to one event but to 1,000 small ones. A mother's hand, tapping the dashboard to the beat of a song on the radio, the smell of warm vinyl on a July afternoon, or the soft sound of gravel under the tires as the family drove back to the same cabin every summer. The '57 Country Squire carried those times with patience, as if it knew that time was fragile and valuable, and that a car could help keep it still, even if only for a short time. But every old driver knows that even the most trusted road has its dark spots. And for the 1957 Ford Country Squire, the first signs of trouble weren't loud. Nothing bad happened, nothing big. The change, on the other hand, happened slowly. The way the light fades in the summer before you even notice the sun is gone. By the early 1960s, the Country Squire still took families across county lines and through the slow, reliable rhythms of American life. But there was a quiet change going on in Detroit. There were more and more compact cars. Wagons became more modern and square. And the old charm of the woodsy look, whether real or fake, began to feel like a postcard from the past. The younger generation didn't know. The chrome was getting thinner. The lines were getting straighter. And even though the Country Squire was still loved, he was slowly losing his place at the center of the family. For many of these '57 wagons, the first real blow came not from changing fashion, but from simply doing their job. They worked too hard. They were carrying the baseball teams, the lumber, the camping stoves, the groceries, the lumber again, the furniture on moving day, and everything else that American life threw into their open tailgates. And their bodies started to show the strain, just like an old workhorse. Rust is starting to show up on the lower fenders and roof seams, tailgates that have been weighed down for years. The vinyl wood that used to shine like a dock by the lake faded in the rain and sun, and curled at the edges where time pushed against the glue. The engines, as reliable as they were, got tired. When the 272s were not taken care of, they started to make their usual lifter noise. The 292s burned a little oil after sitting in the cold for too many winters. Families traded them in, not because they didn't love them, but because life went on. Kids got older, the suburbs got bigger, and paying for a car became easier than doing all the work that needed to be done on it. And that's when the Country Squire really started to fade away. Dealerships didn't think of them as valuable antiques. They saw old wagons with peeling paint, tired V8s, and springs that were sagging. At the time, old family cars weren't worth much, they were just old. After about 10 years, most of them were sent to the back lots and traded for station wagons with cleaner lines, or the new full-size sedan, which was becoming the new star of American driveways. About 57 squires ended up working on farms in their second lives, hauling feed and fence posts until their transmissions broke down beyond repair. Some were given to teenagers as their first cars, but they didn't last long because they were driven too hard, crashed into ditches, telephone poles, or just weren't able to handle the stress of driving. Some were parked behind garages when the cost of repairs was higher than the car's value. They were left to sink into tall grass, where their shiny chrome bumpers collected dust and dew. But maybe the saddest ending was for the ones that met the crusher. Back then, wagons didn't bring in a lot of people at auctions. No one wanted a family car from the Eisenhower years. The big Ford wagons rolled up the ramp one by one, their engines coughing as if they were protesting. Their bodies creaked in the last moments before steel jaws folded their long roofs and gentle wood grain sides into memory. A piece of American family history was destroyed in seconds, but a few of them lived, almost by chance. A father might not have been able to bring himself to get rid of the car that took his family to Yellowstone. A mechanic in a small town might have liked the lines too much to let them go. Or maybe someone knew even then that the Country Squire wasn't just a machine. It was a part of American life wrapped in vinyl wood grain and carried on the rumble of an 8-block thief's YB. Those people who lived would one day become time capsules, but after their prime, they quietly disappeared, like road maps left in glove boxes. So decades later, the story comes back to the quiet garages, barns, and lean-tos that are scattered along America's back roads. The remaining 1957 Ford Country Squire wagons waited in those long-forgotten places, under a layer of dust that was thick enough to mute chrome and soften memory. Some were sitting on flat tires, and their once proud die-knock panels were thin from the sun. Others were sitting on blocks that an old farmer had lifted them years before, fully planning to get to it someday. And every now and then, hidden between tool benches and jars full of bolts of all sizes, you'd find one parked just like it was in the mid-70s. The keys were still in the ignition, there was a folded road map in the glove box, and there was a faint smell of vinyl and oil that felt like a ghost from summers long gone. What happened next was something that no engineer at Ford's design studios in 1957 could have predicted. People all over the world started to miss them. Not loudly or quickly, but slowly, like a memory coming back to life after years of being lost. Younger people found their charm in old photo albums that had seen better days. People who collect things talked quietly about how warm the wood grain was, how calm and confident the roofline was, and how honest the rumble of the YB block hearts was. And the men who used to ride in the back and wave to truckers through the rear glass were now looking for one, just to hear that familiar door latch click and feel their hands glide along the cool sweep of a chrome handle again. Restorations began quietly, almost with reverence. A hood emblem and a dream were all that was left of a Country Squire. Sometimes a full but tired wagon would roll into a store, like an old soldier coming back from a long march. It was never easy to save them. The fake wood grain had to be coaxed back to life or put back on with care. They rebuilt the tailgates, fixed the floorboards, and followed the brittle wiring like the veins of an old tree. But everyone who brought a Country Squire back knew what was really going on. They weren't just fixing a machine, they were saving a piece of American family history. And when one finally got back on the road, its V8 settling into a familiar, soothing thrum, something almost holy happened. People waved. People at gas stations came over with stories. Older men came closer, put a hand on the fender, and let an old silence say what words couldn't. In those quiet talks, the Country Squire became more than just a restored old thing. It became a container for not only its own past, but also the sounds of cross-country trips, summer vacations, early morning fishing trips, and the wide-open wonder of a different America. A 1957 Country Squire is a reminder of how families used to travel together, slowly, with the same miles ahead of them. The long roofline makes me think of camping trips and parades in small towns. Its wide seats remind me of the kids laughing in the back. The wood grain panels still catch the light like a dock on a lake does at sunset. And its engine, whether it's the reliable 272 or the lively 292, has the soft heartbeat of a country that used to think that every road led to something worth finding. And if this old wagon has brought back a memory for you, like a quiet ride home after a summer game or a steady rumble under your shoes, don't let that feeling fade. Please share it below. Leave a comment with the stories your family told about wood grain and steel. If this trip made you smile or brought back a memory, please like it and share it with someone who might remember. And if you want to keep walking these old American roads with me, you can subscribe and wait for the next chapter, which is hiding in the shadows of Detroit's forgotten glory. It's forgotten glory. It's forgotten